Ray slammed the door and bolted it shut. That won't hold them. Indeed, even as the words left her mouth, a powerful blow shook the timbers. Mitsue scanned the room. There has to be a way out. But there were no other doors leading from the abbess's office, and the single window was barred. There has to. Then he saw it, a small trapdoor set into the ceiling. Mitsue dumped Ernley into a chair, the injured boy still unable to stand on his broken ankle. With a leap, he caught hold of the string dangling from the trapdoor and yanked down hard. The cord snapped cleanly in half. God damn it! Get me up there, Ray called, stepping up onto the abbess's desk. Mitsue grabbed her around the waist and positioned himself, Ray's heels digging into his stomach. Higher, Ray urged from above, her fingers brushing the bottom of the trapdoor. A high-pitched laughter rolled in from the hallway, lifting every hair on Mitsue's body. I'm trying. He pressed with all his strength, his arms aching with the effort. Hurry, he grunted. Almost there, almost there. Ray managed to get her fingers in at the edge and open the trapdoor a crack. Sweat ran down Mitsue's forehead and into his eyes. His muscles shook. He was quickly running out of stamina. Hurry! Almost there. Just as he felt his arms give way, Ray grabbed hold of the lip of the trapdoor. There she hung suspended. It's stuck, Ray hissed. The ladder. Well, try something, Mitsue called, unable to offer any clearer direction. Ray's left hand slipped. Briefly she hung solely by the fingertips of her right, but with immense effort she managed to re-establish her grip. Then she began to swing back and forth, working the trapdoor open little by little. Soon it was wide enough to permit her, and, with a cry, she hauled herself into the darkness overhead. Come on, come on. Mitsue spared a glance at the door which led out into the hall. Shadows were now beginning to slip beneath the crack, to foam and churn, gaining substance and form. Come on. From above came the sound of Ray wrestling with the jammed ladder. Ray. The shadows coalesced into an arm, a leg, a misshapen head with spindly fingers reaching from the depths of its eyes. Ray! Look out! Ray called. With a groan, the trapdoor swung fully open, and the attached ladder dropped, nearly catching Mitsue's shoulder. He dodged out of the way. Then he was lifting Krista, passing the little girl upward. He grabbed Ernley by the collar and pulled him from his seat and threw him. Mitsue hauled himself up after. He was halfway up before he realized what he'd forgotten. Light. Even if there were a gas lamp, they wouldn't be able to find it in the darkness. He looked around. There! A candle was still glowing on the abbess's desk, though its light now flickered as if it would die at any moment. Mitsue made to jump from the ladder, but his foot tangled in the rungs and he slipped sideways and smashed his head into the hardwood desk. Silver stars exploded across his vision. He lay on the floor, feeling as though he might throw up. Then, staggering to his feet, one hand clamped to the bump rising from his skull, he seized the lit candle. Mitsue! Ray shouted. He turned just as the hallway door ripped from its hinges. An enormous shadowy fist rose above him. He rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the blow as it snapped the ladder in half and crushed the desk into a cloud of wooden splinters. Mitsue bounced to his feet. Amazingly, the candle hadn't gone out. Sliding through the debris, he dove for the ladder. He had to leap to catch the lowest surviving rung. Then he was climbing as quickly as he could, the candle between his teeth, his vision still jittering from the fall. Beneath him, 1,000 dark hands reached upwards. And then he was up and over. Ray slammed the trapdoor shut and helped Mitsue to his feet. They were in a small attic, the stone ceiling slanting with the roof, their shadows dancing and swaying in the flickering candlelight. From the corner, Mitsue caught the glint of a window. He staggered over to it. No bars. He scrabbled with the lock, his fingers heavy. It looked like it lit out on the roof. Come on. Years or decades of disuse had corroded the metal and set it firmly in place. He beat his fist against it, but it wouldn't give. It won't open. Let me try, Ray said, pushing him out of the way. She flew at the lock, scratching with her nails, hammering with her knuckles, till her fingers were raw and bloody. God damn it, she cried, unable to open it. One more try, Mitsue said, passing the candle to Ray. Hurry, Ray panted, her face completely drained of blood. Shadows were now beginning to bubble up around the frame of the trap door. There was no other choice. Please. Mitsue slammed his fist into the window pane. The force of the impact shivered up his arm. Please. He drew his arm back and threw it again. Please. And again. And again. Please. His knuckles split and bled, droplets cascading across the floor, black in the candlelight. Please. He drove his fist into the glass one last time with all the strength he had, nearly blacking out from the pain. He swayed on his feet. He'd managed to put a tiny crack in the center, but otherwise the glass was undamaged. It's no use. It was too thick. He couldn't do it. He dropped his hand. This is it. He turned to look at Rei. She stared back, her eyes wide in terror, as from behind, the trapdoor tore open. Mitsue dropped his hands to his sides. It was no use. He couldn't break the window, and there was nothing in the attic they could use. It's over. Mitsue met Rei's terrified eyes. I'm sorry, he wanted to say, but the words never left his mouth, as just then a shadow slipped in through a crack at the edge of the window. It darted at Rei, coiling around her leg, slithering up her torso, turning around her until it reached her neck. It reared back, then forced its way into her mouth and down her throat. She choked and collapsed to the floor. Rei! Mitsue shouted, dropping down beside her. He cradled her head. Her eyes had rolled back in their sockets, and she convulsed in his arms. I can't save her. Kristen Ernley had backed into the corner farthest from the trapdoor, Ernley shielding the young girl as best he could. I can't save anyone. Tears rolled down Mitsue's cheeks, and suddenly he was once again walking the ruined streets of his childhood as the flames danced among the rooftops, devouring everything they touched. He wanted to call out, but the smoke filled his lungs. This is fear. This is how it feels, to die. He heard screams from the buildings, people burning, their eyes melting and running down their faces, their skin charring. One voice, in particular, rose above all the rest. Mom! But then a man stood before him, clad in a black uniform chased with red. A kindler. He sneered at Mitsue and spoke in a strange, angular language. Though Mitsue couldn't understand the words, he knew the tone. I'm going to die, he thought, as the man lifted his hand. In the man's palm a ball of yellow fire twisted and danced. The man spoke again, staring into the flames. Then his eyes flicked towards Mitsue. He smiled. Sayonara, he said, so that Mitsue would understand. I don't want to die. The memory splintered. He felt as if he were falling. A vision unfolded in front of him. He was standing before an arch of black stone, rippled and turned, as if twisted by some great heat. What is this? As he looked on, a light appeared at the edge, as if a doorway were opening. Blood rushed through, pooling all around his feet. And as it did, he heard a slow beating that seemed to echo inside of him, to echo through every part of him, every fiber, every molecule, every atom, till he felt as if he would unravel, the sound like the tolling of some great and unknowable heart. But then, as quickly as it had come, the vision faded, leaving only a retinal burn like a silver star in Mitsue's eyes. He stared at his hands. Blood dripped from his knuckles. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. The trapdoor exploded open, and the Noctura gushed upward, a geyser of darkness like the first spurt of new oil. Its inky substance splattered the walls. A moment later, the splotches began to writhe, then to move, to clump together, reforming, faces appearing and disappearing, lips crying out. The darkness encircled Mitsue and the rest. Closer, closer, closer it came. But as the darkness filled his vision and death closed around him, Mitsue no longer felt any fear, nor despair, nor the final reluctant surrender of the dying. He felt only a pyrotechnic rage, a rage that sunk its teeth into the foundations of his bones, that sizzled in his blood. An energy filled him, and with a final white-knuckle, grit-teeth determination, he seized it. I don't want to die. In his memory, the kindler with the fire in his palm was laughing as the city burned behind him. In the present, the Noctura before him was laughing from a dozen different faces, and Mitsue, now, too, was laughing. Laughter that felt like sobbing. He raised his hand as the energy tore out of him. Sayonara. The world turned white. There was an intense blast of heat, and then everything collapsed into black cinder.